Everybody? Welcome back to the Wordsmith's Forge. I'm Matthew J. Coran, and today we're going to be continuing our Breathsinger Saga study. This is number 7, titled Mercy with Strangers. Mercy Toward Strangers. And we're going to get into the nature of mercy, love, charity, and how it applies to what Sim does in... what chapter is it? Chapter 13. And we're going to analyze it a bit. All right, so I want to kind of open this up. I want to do something a bit different today. I'm going to open this up with a Bible reading, and we're going to look at it. We're going to actually a couple Bible readings, and we're going to look at this chapter within this lens, okay? So the first is Matthew 25, verses 37 through 40. Then the righteous will answer him, saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? When did we see you a stranger and take you in, or naked and clothe you? Or when did we see you sick or in prison and come to you? And the king will answer and say to them, Assuredly I say to you, inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these, my brethren, you did it to me. So that's number 1. And then number 2, I've read this before. I don't remember exactly when. I don't expect you to either. So I'm just going to read it again. Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I have become sounding brass or a clanging cymbal. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains, but I have not love, I am nothing. I have not charity, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned, but have not charity, it profits me nothing. And that was from 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 1 through, 3. And so, 2 things to kind of keep in mind there. It's good to do good things for people. Objectively. It is good to feed the hungry. It is good to give alms to the poor. Almsgiving is a good thing, especially during this time of Lent. But there's a caveat. You need to be doing it for the right reasons. You can't be doing it for yourself. And so let's go ahead and go through this chapter. And so, kind of picking up in the story, this chapter comes after Sim going to the woods after talking to the Breezers, and he's just walking around thinking, and then all of a sudden he stumbles upon a wounded man with an arrow in his shoulder. And so it kind of cuts off at that point and then goes to the story of King Colin. And we have a mysterious assailant who basically mugs him and then beats up his friends and leaves. And what's the one thing we know about that man? By the end of that chapter, he gets hit by a poison arrow. Fast forward to Sim finding a man with an arrow sticking out of him. And so Sim's conflicted at first. At first he's freaked out. He's like, is this a wounded guy here? You know, people don't get shot with an arrow for no reason. He might be dangerous. And he notices that arrow is marked with the Taran royal symbol, so, he's a fugitive of the crown. Perfect. But something else catches his eye, right? He has a pendant very similar to Sim's own, only his glows. There's a dull glow to it. Sim's pendant doesn't glow for him because it only glowed for his father. So whoever this man is, he might have the same mysterious power that his father had. Right? And I also juxtapose this, I'm jumping around a little bit. I juxtapose this with a flashback of Sim's father with his pendant. He has a glowing pendant, right? He discovers a wounded man on the road. And using some mysterious power, he's able to heal that man. So now Sim finds himself in a similar predicament where he finds a wounded man on the road. He doesn't know much about him, but he knows two things. One, he's probably hunted by the crown. And two, he could be connected to Sim's father. Right? So now Sim is doing a calculated decision on how to proceed. And he considers helping the man out just like his father did, but he also doesn't want to endanger his family. He doesn't want to endanger himself. He doesn't know who this man is. He doesn't know what this man can do. And so he wrestles it for a bit. And he remembers, well, this man's an enemy of the crown, but so is my father, right? His father was unjustly marked an enemy of the crown and was taken in for questioning. And so this man, being connected to his father, maybe suffered a similar fate. And he also remembers his father saying that he has friends who have pendants just like his. So this man could likely be a friend of his father's. And so Sim now felt not only a desire, but an obligation to take this man in. And so he eventually did. And so what I want to ask first is if you think there was a difference between how Sim handled the situation and how his father did, right? We don't know what his father said to the man because this is happening through Sim's perspective, like when he was a kid. He just sees his father approach the man. He hears some words being said, but he can't really... Let me double check that. Am I making stuff up? Yeah, he just sees that they're talking, and he doesn't know what's being said. He just knows that his father healed him. And Sim's father basically just says, never underestimate how far a little bit of mercy from a stranger can go, son. So we don't know what the exchange was. But did it appear like his father, Wyatt, gained anything out of it? No, right? He healed the man went on his merry way, and then he just came back, acted as though nothing had happened. So, in that regard, Wyatt seemed to fulfill that act of mercy that we would be called to in the Bible based on the readings I just read, right? He took care of someone along the road. I could have also used the Good Samaritan reading, but I should just use this instead. Because I think it speaks to something a bit bigger than what was going on, even though that was based on the Good Samaritan story. Because he did this not just because for the sake of the man, it was because it was right. And that's the key. Inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these, my brethren, you did it to me. Because what does charity mean? Because St. Paul talks about charity. The translation says love, but it's charity. I even got caught in that for a second. But if he doesn't do these things, St. Paul says, if he doesn't do these things with charity, it's nothing. So what is charity? Charity is doing things not for the sake of yourself, not even for the sake of someone else, but for the sake of God. You do good, you will the good of others for God's sake, right? And so Wyatt helped someone through no cost of his own. And you can tell, like, he's a faithful man based on other reflections that Sim has of the past and other things he says. He is trying to be faithful to Acerde, the Most High. And this action he does is a reflection of that. So now fast forward to Sim 12 years later, he finds this man and he's doing a calculation right off the bat that tells you it's different. You didn't see Wyatt struggling. It didn't appear like he was struggling to figure out whether or not to help this man. It appeared like there was no hesitation in him at all. He just did it, right? Sim was a different story. And you could argue that there was some prudence to his reflection because Sim didn't have the ability to immediately heal this man the same way his father did, right? He didn't have the magical pendant ability. He just had himself and potentially some people that could help him, right? He didn't really have a plan for how he would be able to help this man, but he saw that he needed help. And from there, he asked himself if it was worth helping him, basically, right? There was the facet of this man could be dangerous, but then that kind of got overridden by this man might lead me to my father, right? And so it wasn't completely innocent motives. It was all about risk versus reward. Sure, there was the altruism of wanting to help a man in need, but you could see that it was almost like Sim kind of just threw that in there to make it sound better, when in reality, he just wants to be close to his father. If that man didn't have that pendant, Sim wouldn't have helped him, right? He would have just written him off as an enemy of the crown, be like, this guy's dangerous, I should just leave him be. Just leave him to his fate, whatever it may be. And it wasn't until after he saw the pendant that he reconsidered what it means to be an enemy of the crown. And he has a natural distrust for the crown because of what they did to his father. And he allowed that to then do these mental gymnastics where, okay, maybe this isn't so bad then. My father was technically an enemy of the crown, but, they falsely persecute people. So this guy's appears to be just like my father. He might be a friend of my father's. So a good chance he was persecuted in the same way. But he doesn't know that. And it could just as easily be he is actually a criminal. Because even though there's corrupt governments out there that persecute people falsely, they also persecute actual criminals who deserve it. Right? And so Sim kind of takes a leap of faith because he wants it to be true that this man is connected to his father. And we'll get into later on how that goes for him. And so, in our own lives, we tend to do a similar thing when we see that someone is in need, right? In our natural human response, we tend to do a risk versus reward calculation. I'm even guilty of this a few weeks ago. It was actually on Valentine's Day. Me and my wife went out with our son, our 2-month-old son at the time. And we were going in, and we were in this parking lot, and this man came up to me, and he was basically asking if we had any money to give for a poor homeless man. And I said no, because my gut instinct was to get this man. I don't know him. I don't know if he's dangerous, if he's a junkie, because, there are a lot of those in the area. Like, this guy could just be a junkie wanting a fix, and I don't want him near my wife and kids. My wife and kid. Sorry, I only have one son. But he But I just decided it would be safer to just tell him no so he goes on his way, instead of exposing my wife and kid to that. And then I thought about it a little later because the reality was I did have money on me I could have given him. And so I'm like, it's not okay to lie, even in situations like that, even when you think it's for a good reason. It's not okay to lie. It's like that was a sin I had to confess because I don't I don't ever want to be a liar, even when I feel like I have a good reason. Because every liar feels like they have a good reason, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't lie. And so I did like I reflected on what it means to be charitable because even if I given him money and then he goes and buy drugs, am I responsible for that? No. Unless I knew he was going to do that. Like if I knew that guy and I knew what he was about and I knew he would ask people for money to buy drugs, then I would tell him no. And I would not feel bad about it. And I wouldn't say, no, I don't have any money to give. I would say, no, I'm not giving you money because I know what you're going to do with it. That's the proper response. And my typical response would be, or like in my head, like I would think, like if people ask me that, a lot of times I want to give them money. I'll offer to buy them food, but it's like I was with my wife and my kid. I didn't really want to expose them to that, like invite him out to dinner with us. But maybe that would have been the right move. I don't know. But one thing I do know is I did not ask God before just doing my knee-jerk natural reaction of just dismiss him and move on, however way you can, right? And so there was not charity in my heart. And whether it would have been to invite him to dinner with us, to just give him some money, or offer to buy him a meal later on, I could have done something that was more than what I did and way better, right? And so it's good to reflect on this time because it might not even be something monetary. It could be your time. It could be helping someone move. It could be just giving alms in some way. Alms just means help. Giving help in some way to people who need it, right? And to do it without thinking about yourself. Exercise prudence. Like don't just like endanger yourself or people needlessly. But don't think about the risk versus reward aspect of it like Sim did, right? Think about how can I help this person the best in a way that I see Christ suffering in them and they need help. That was something that really came to me last night. We were doing Stations of the Cross in my local parish, and one of the prayers in there is for us to see Christ bruised in them, meaning others, in our neighbor. To see the suffering of Christ, the passion of Christ in other people, and to want to alleviate that, right? Alleviate that suffering the same way Veronica did, the same way Simon of Cyrene did. To extend that help because Christ suffered for us all. So when we help with the suffering of other people, we're helping in the suffering of Christ, right? Or we're helping the suffering of Christ. We're doing it for him. And so, yeah, just reflect on that a bit. And if anything jumped out to you from this, feel free to share it. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care. God bless. See you later.